Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at NDNTV Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button and be the first to get notifications.
Welcome back. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. The recent crisis surrounding the selection process of the next Olu of Warri Kingdom has revealed several scenarios in the kingdom. One of such revelations is the Cold War-like rivalry that exists between the two most senior chiefs in the kingdom, the Ologbotsere and the Iyasere. While Chief Iyasere Mami holds the Ologbotsere title, Chief Johnson Amashunrelege is the Iyasere. Both chiefs can lay claim to being the traditional prime minister as well as the most senior chief in the kingdom, next in hierarchy only to the Olu of Warri. However, while ancient history dating back to the establishment of the kingdom in 1480 favors the Iyasere as the most senior chief and traditional prime minister, recent history, and indeed the 1979 Bendel State Edict governing the traditional process for the selection of an Olu of Warri, favors the Ologbotsere. This awkward scenario has always been responsible for the rivalry between the two chiefs in the kingdom. This rivalry has now been brought to the full glare of everyone by their disagreements over the selection process of the next Olu of Warri Kingdom.
When there is tussle for succession of the Olu, there is a group called MAMODE, I agree, and another group that says MAMODE, I don't agree. But immediately the Omoba, the Olu designate comes out, is agreed on, all the MAMODE, they all come together and we continue with our life.
Chief Roland Orisha-Jafo, former Minister of State for Defense, is the AKUGHA of Warri Kingdom. Contrary to his submission that all contending parties are immediately reconciled once an Olu designate is named, the current factions in the selection process of Omoba Shola Emiko as the Olu designate are yet to be reconciled. The two warring factions are curiously led by the two most senior chiefs in the kingdom. The Ologbotsere faction, led by Chief Iyasere Mami, which is opposed to the selection process that produced Shola Emiko as Olu designate, and the Iyasere faction, led by Chief Johnson Amashunrelege, who midwifed the emergence of the Omoba. The rivalry between these two chiefs dates back to 360 years when Erejuwa I in 1760, following a disagreement with the Iyasere, appointed for the first time in Warri Kingdom an Ologbotsere, who upon appointment became the most senior chief in the kingdom. Prior to this time, the Iyasere, who led the chiefs and Giniwa I from Benin Kingdom to establish Warri Kingdom in 1480, was always regarded as the most senior chief and traditional prime minister.
Iyasere is the senior chief that led the 70 chiefs to Warri Kingdom, and he is the prime minister. From 1480 to 1760, when Erejuwa I introduced Ologbotsere, for over 300 years, there was nothing like Ologbotsere in Warri Kingdom. For over 700 years, we only have 4 Ologbotsere. That is to tell you that the Warri Kingdom, Ologbotsere is not always with the kingdom. I, as the Iyasere today, I am the 18th Iyasere. The Olu that just left, Ogiame Kewoli, is the 20th Olu of Warri. I am the 18th Iyasere, while the suspended Ologbotsere is the 4th Ologbotsere.
280 years after the Warri Kingdom was established, Ogiame Erejuwa I created the Ologbotsere title.
The Iyasere was number 1 of all the chiefs, and because of internal wrangling and politics, he shelved that position. Now the entire nation is being reminded that this is the proper position, and so it's a delicate situation whether we want to revert to where and how it was originally, or we want to continue with the alteration that brought Ologbotsere on top of Iyasere.
The Ologbotsere title is political because it was based on proclamation from a ritual the first. If not, the second in command in the absence of the Olu is the Iyasere, just the same way it is in Benin.
That the Shakiris are historically linked to Benin Kingdom is not in doubt. However, while the Iyasere is undisputedly the prime minister in Benin Kingdom and the Ologbotsere a war general, the situation is somewhat different in Warri Kingdom with the Ologbotsere as the prime minister.
When Ogidiga came, the Oba of Benin, he said it here, pronounced it well, pronounced it perfectly, that in the absence of the Oba, the Iyasere takes over. And the same thing happens in Benin.
Majority of the 20 monarchs who have ruled Warri Kingdom since 1480 did not believe the Ologbotsere Stool to be important in the governance of the kingdom. Only 3 Olus have appointed Ologbotsere. Ogame Atuashe II, who ruled from 1987 to 2015 and worked with 2 Iyaseres during his reign, a period of 28 years, never appointed an Ologbotsere. When immediate past Olu Ogame Ikenwole made known his intention to appoint Chief Ayiri Emami as Ologbotsere of Warri in 2017, it was greeted with stiff opposition from the generality of the Shakiri people. In fact, there were protests across the kingdom which made Ogame Ikenwole to temporarily put off the installation ceremony.
We're here to appeal to the Olu to try and stop this installation.
Ogame Ikenwole, however, still went ahead to install Chief Ayiri Emami as the Ologbotsere of Warri Kingdom in a colorful ceremony that had all the trappings of royalty and aristocracy. In this battle of succession, Guinea One ruling house, Council of Chiefs and majority of Shakiris are obviously in support of the Iyasere, Chief Johnson and Mashurelege. According to Chief Robinson Ario, Egogo of Warri Kingdom, their overwhelming support for the Iyasere stems from the fact that the Ologbotsere has not lived up to expectation.
Nobody is perfect. If you have made a mistake, own up to your mistake. Be humble enough to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, the Guinea ruling house. I'm sorry, my fellow chiefs. I didn't think this through. Please forgive me. You know, if that had been what was on the table, the dynamics would have changed. Some of us would have, had sympathy with him. But instead of doing that, what is he doing? He's gathering young people and protesting to sustain his wrong, to justify his wrong.
Given the perception that most people have of Chief Ayiri, it did not come as a surprise, therefore, that the Guinea One ruling house did not waste time in sanctioning Chief Ayiri as soon as he stepped out of line.
It is regrettable that our well-respected age-old throne of the Olu of Warri has been subjected to strange and deliberate machinations by a cabal of a few rascals led by Chief Ayiri Emami, who against all odds, advice and protests by the people was fostered on a Shakiri nation as Ologbotsere of the kingdom. What most Shakiri saw at the time that led to the massive protests across the land are the things manifesting now in very audacious but sad circumstances. Chief Ayiri Emami, having exhibited actions and tendencies unbecoming of the position he occupies, and having proven himself unworthy of the Ologbotsere Stool, is hereby suspended from the Warri.
Though the suspension of Chief Ayiri was done by Guinea One ruling house, Chief Isaac Jemide, the Oshodin of Warri, accused the Iyasere, Chief Johnson and Mashurelege of masterminding the entire plot in order for him to take over as the most senior chief in the kingdom.
The man we are talking about now is number 2 in hierarchy. Ologbotsere is number 1. He didn't give him the Ologbotsere. The person who gave him the was an Olu. So you can't suspend him. You can't touch it. But he did so for his own convenience, so that he can have opportunity to do the wrong thing.
As the rivalry and battle for supremacy continues, some Ishakiris are still very confident and hopeful for an amicable resolution of the crisis. As part of their attempt to force a reconciliation to come about, some Ishakiris that stormed the police AIG Zone 5 headquarters in Benin to ask the AIG Zone 5 to reject a petition from the Council of Chiefs asking that Chief Iyasere be investigated for burglary and theft of royal artifacts and monuments, including the 400-year-old crown of the Olu of Warri. They say the matter is purely a traditional matter and should be resolved at home.
We are here to appeal to the AIG. Let him send all of them, both the chief, all of them home, and tell them we want to hear the date of settlement. That is what he should tell them.
We are here because we have made a lot of move concerning this issue for settlement. We are surprised that the issue is here, or they brought it here. We are here to appeal to you that this issue should be taken away from here for us to go and resolve at home.
The police, through a spokesman for AIG Zone 5, Tijani Momo, says the police is not delving into traditional matters, but was only investigating a criminal case of theft.
It was based on the petition that was written to the AIG that was approved for investigation by the AIG that we are investigating a case of burglary and stealing. I understand that the crowns of the Olu of Warri, over that's hundreds of years old, they are nowhere to be found. So that's based on that petition that was written to the AIG. That is why the police got involved in this matter. Ordinarily, the police will not come to Warri and start involving themselves in traditional issues, because that's anything kingship, leadership thoughts. It's purely a civil matter, a matter for the courts, for the government to determine.
Chief Robinson Ario, who describes the protest as misplaced, says what all Ishakiris should be insisting on now is the unconditional return of the stolen royal items.
What are you protesting? Are you protesting that the stolen items should not be returned? What exactly is the protest? What's the piece you are talking about? On what foundation? The crown, that 410 years old crown, is much too precious to be used as a tool of negotiation. Let's get the crown first. As soon as the crown is produced, as soon as the beads and other monuments that were stolen are produced, then, of course, peace has been ongoing.
Chief Ario also speaks on the way to avoid the rivalry between the Ologbotsere and the Iyasere.
Any king wants to avoid this unhealthy rivalry. One, don't appoint it, the rivalry will not be there. Don't appoint an Ologbotsere, the rivalry will not be there. Or two, if you have to, allow your selection process to be commensurate with the seriousness of the task. Don't put somebody who is probably aged enough, has the patience. My late father told me that human beings have 2 ears and 1 mouth because they need to listen more than they talk. This Ologbotsere has 2 mouths and 1 ear. He speaks more than he talks. So these were the wrong things that were done. It's not wrong to have an Ologbotsere, but it's wrong to have a person who is not fit and proper, so to say, being an Ologbotsere.
As the nation continues to watch the unfolding events in Warri Kingdom, it is becoming very likely that the next Olu of Warri, Prince Shola Emiko, may have to reshuffle his cabinet to meet the yearnings and aspirations of the Shakiri people.
Inside the Niger Delta,